Greetings everybody. This is yet another video. This is a requested video and the name of the person requesting it will come up on the screen shortly. The issue is the viewer has a problem with a sound in the front section of his FZ. Now the viewer seems to believe that the sound is coming from the brake system. Now my motorcycle had sound coming from this general area for quite a while, and it took me some time before I figured out exactly what the problem was. In my case, the issue was here. This is the speed sensor, okay? And what had happened is that when I removed all of this and looked, the grease that was behind here was either degraded or it wasn't sufficient. I'm not sure exactly what was the problem, but when I looked, almost everything behind here was corroded, and obviously that dry situation was causing the sound. Now what I will do, I will go through the motion of removing the front axle and showing you exactly what it is that was causing the problem. Now my bike is fixed. I don't have the sound anymore because it's been lubricated, but let's go ahead and see what's what. Okay guys, the first thing that I've done is I've used a jack stand to pivot the bike in such a way that both wheels are off the ground. Okay, and from here we can start working. Okay, now what we will need to complete this project: two simple tools, a 90mm spanner and a 70mm spanner. Okay, the 90mm goes on the disc side and the 17mm goes on the other side. Okay, now I've off camera already loosened the bolts, so please, it didn't take a lot of effort, but I don't want you to believe, anybody to believe that my bolts were somehow loose or anything like that. Okay, I did that off camera. Okay, so let's proceed. Now the 19 is the one that you want to remove. Okay, this fashion. Okay, now I'm probably going to get flat for this, but it's really a non-issue. We're just lightly tapping this here with a hammer. Okay, just light tap. There's some that are going to say, oh, you need to use a rubber mallet. Okay, buy me one. Okay, so if we can see here, what I'm doing is I'm just removing the axle. Okay, the axle nut. Okay, now with my left hand, I'm just holding the wheel in place, and I'll be guiding it down to the ground, just like that. Okay, so it's resting on the ground, it's not resting on the speedometer cable. Now, what I've done, I've actually greased this shaft. Okay, this wasn't necessarily part of the problem, but it was fairly dry. There had some grease on it, but it was fairly dry, so I'd gone ahead and put some grease on that as well. Okay. So what is actually happening, if we'll tilt this way very carefully, is we can see here, this is the problem. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and remove that. Okay. Now we have to be careful because the brake caliper is here and the pads are there. So when we're removing the wheel, moving the wheel, we have to be careful not to cause any of the brake pads to fall out. Okay. So this is actually quite loose here. but it does require us moving it a little bit, the wheel, to get it off. Now this spacer, this is here for a reason. This actually aids in what we're doing here, because this allows us to move the wheel to that side. Okay, so this I was actually trying to take it off without making it fall, but it slipped. So we are now free to move the wheel a little bit, and there we have it. Okay, now this was the problem, so let's get a close-up of exactly what we're dealing with. Now what was happening was that this area here was dry, and this area here was dry. Now if you look closely, this camera doesn't focus very well, but you will see that the interior here, it doesn't look too bad now because it's been lubricated, and to be honest, it probably can take a little more grease, to be honest, but we're gonna leave it as is for now. We don't want to over grease it because we're so close to the disc. Now what was happening was that all of here was corroded, and then it was meshing against here, this area here, and causing a squeak. Okay, so having greased all of that, just lightly, nothing overdone, because if you have splashing, it's gonna go get on the rotor, and then you're gonna have brake problems. Okay, possibly permanently, until you replace the brake pads. Okay, so so I'm just gonna leave this as is. I probably could use a little bit of wetting, but we'll leave it alone for now. Okay, I'm absolutely having no problems, no sound at all. Okay, so that was a problem. So once you get that all, you know, greased up, like I said, I greased the axle slightly before I put it back in. Okay, and I would recommend that you do that as well. Okay, so let's set back up and show you the how we go about putting everything back together. Okay, it's a little tricky. Okay, so we want to make sure that the disc is in line with the brake pads. Now it hasn't moved from the brake pad, so we should be fine there. So what we'll do, we'll just move the wheel back a little bit so we get this in a position here. Now it only fits in one direction, so you can't possibly misalign it. Okay, so let's go ahead and set this. Okay, now we need to, you know, kind of rest it there for a second. First thing we need to do, okay, is to ensure that our axle has the washer in place. Okay, we'll set that aside. Now the spacer that we mentioned before, okay, it's right here. We need to, if we can see, let's tilt this a little bit here so you can see, is to get this in place there. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay, that's that. Now we're pretty much aligned here. All we have to do is just more or less move the tire up. Okay, so we'll get our axle ready. Let's rest there. We want to lift. Now this is really a two-man job, but seeing that I'm a one-man show, we'll have to just make. Okay. Okay. Now we've had the axle partially in, and we want to make sure that the speedometer cup is aligned with this little tab here. We're pretty much aligned, so we can go ahead and run the axle through. Okay. Like I said, this is really a two-man job. Okay, so now that's how we have it. Okay, now let me show you what I mean when I say that the speedometer has to have this little tab here. Let me see if I can get a little closer. This tab has to fit between these two, this groove here. Okay, great. So let's move our position slightly. We are here. Okay, so let's go ahead and run this in. Okay, 19 millimeter on this side, 17 mil on this side. So I'm just spinning the 17 on the right hand side here. We're looking good. A little tight. Okay, let's give it a test. Okay, that sound that you're hearing there is just the brake pads basically just seating themselves after being moved around a little bit. Okay, so that's pretty normal. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Okay, no squeaking, and that's great. So we can just test the brake. We're good to go. All right, thanks for watching, guys. I hope that was of benefit to you, and keep watching. Bye-bye.